why don't we start with how are you currently doing things? What inspired that experiment, if you will? And just for those who haven't read the article, of course.
Right, excellent. Right. Last time we spoke, I had a bee in my bonnet about competing again, didn't I? I was like, right, I'm going to do it. I'm going to compete. But then, as you start getting ready for it, it's not going to happen anymore. Look, I'm 58. I've done 80 something competitions, 82 competitions. I'd be just silly to put my body underneath that much strain. But what a lot of people don't talk about is when you've been an athlete, look, and it's been my life, I've worked it. All those hours, like we mentioned, I've worked it. I've trained all those years. Every year I've done competition after competition. So you think if I've been competing for that many years, how many comps I would do a year? And the focus and the mindset you've got to have to get ready for competitions, it's really hard to switch it off. As you're getting older, look, I've never been old before, so I found it hard, if I'm honest. You find it hard battling with that. And I often think to myself, it's so hard to let something go which you love so much. Because if I could, and if I could have a magic wand of me Peter Pan or whatever, I would still be competing because it becomes ingrained in you. It's part of you. I battled with that for quite a long time, being able to sort of balance out life even more and not having goals to go for. When Louise passed away, I started throwing myself into raising money for charity, which was really successful. And I was doing things like how many chins can I do in an hour, or hike 1,000 miles and things like that, because I felt like something needed to be done and I needed to do something. So it was not only helping other people, it was helping my mindset. Then I'd jump into powerlifting and do a bit of that, and again, that would be too dangerous for me to do now. The years and years of training, injury, you're just going to ruin everything and not be able to train. So when I first got into training when I was a kid, the motivation I got was from just training and being healthy. And even though, like I said this to you earlier, I was a bit weird at 10, 12-year-old because I was into health and not eating sweets and eating fruit and drinking milk and exercising at such a young age that, it's ingrained in me that much. But I wasn't striving for anything at that point, but I was like inspired by the people on, the bodybuilders. And we had like a cellar which we would train in. And all across all the wall, there was like, pictures of Robbie Robinson. There will be Danny Padilla, Serge Nubret was one of our favourites because he trained light on the very basics. He didn't have any fancy equipment like some of the others. Obviously, Mensa was using Nautilus and that at that time. So we gravitated more towards him. We had all these pictures on the wall and we only had like one barbell, which was homemade. We had a couple of chest expanders, which were hung from the rafters and pinned up. We had a bull worker, which I've still got to this day, which I had from when I was 13. And we just trained for the love of it. And yet we'd do more sets than I have been doing. But the workouts, if you keep within those principles, like I said, only the 3 days a week and using the principles of those people, I found that if I've imagined, it sounds really silly, if I imagine I'm a kid again, like I was when I was 13 and just starting out, it's helped me come to terms with not being able to compete. Now, people would say, why, you would be able to compete, but I'd be a shadow of my former self and I can't cope with that. I can be good for what I am now and I need something to keep healthy and strong and fit and lean as I get older. So I needed something to help trigger my mind. So that's what I did. I call it being a kid again, going full circle. I even wrote a book on this called Full Circle, which is about training with the bare basics. So I started these programs. So my plan is to do 5 weeks of a Serge Nubret program, 5 weeks of Danny Padilla, and I think it goes 5 weeks Chris Dickerson, and then 5 weeks Frank Zane. They just so happen to be the pictures we had on the walls of those days, of those bodybuilders. So sounds really silly, but I got those pictures, found them on the internet and stuff what we had on the wall, and I've actually got them redone and I've put them up on the wall in my gym in there. So when I get in there in the morning and I'm stretching and doing my yoga, or I've been out for a fast walk, and before I train with the bare basics as well, I can see these pictures and I'm taken back to a time when it was young and innocent and exciting, and you train and expect gains because he wasn't bombarded and bamboozled with everything. He wasn't bombarded with too much information. You just couldn't wait to train before you went to school or train when you got home from after school. It was just so exciting a time, and that's what I'm trying to recreate, really.
With regards to the workouts themselves, it's an interesting thing because at the end of the day, you want to enjoy this, right? And if you've gotten to a point where that's not as enjoyable anymore for whatever the reason, then doing what it takes to find how you can enjoy this thing again is probably the most important thing.
Yeah.
Or else you're not going to do it. So with the actual workouts themselves, what does that look like? Because obviously we talked about this last time about the importance of customizing the workouts for yourself.
Absolutely, and that's where we can go now, Kenny, with that, because I've actually customized them to me. Now, Serge Newbury would do, like say for his chest, he would do bench press and he would do 10 sets of bench press. And then he would do 10 sets of flies. And then if he was doing his back, he'd do 10 sets of chins and maybe 5 to 10 sets of seated cable rows. Well, I ain't doing anywhere near 10 sets. But what I do is maybe 4 or 5 sets of benching and 3 sets of flies. But what I'm using is the principles he used, i.e. I would read up about, excited to read up about that bodybuilder. Like I used to be back in the day when I was a kid. You'd get the magazine and you'd be so excited to follow Robbie Robinson's program. And when you was a kid, you could do far more because you could recover. You was a kid, you're growing. It never broke you down. But as you've got older and everything, life and everything else, it's going to break you down, especially as my age. So I dilute it right down, but I still really enjoy it. So Serge Newbury used to bench press, but it was only like the bottom half of the movement. So he kept constant tension on it. He tried to do the same weight for all the 10 sets and try and get the same reps all the way through. So if I'm doing 5 sets of benching, I'll go, Vince will go, I'll go, Vince will go. We'll do that back to back. And the burn is incredible because you're trying to get 12 to 15 reps or whatever you're trying to get, and the burn's incredible. 5 sets of chins, going, I go, you go, doing them like he used to do them with a wider grip for sets of 12 is tough, but it's not nervous system tough. If I were like thinking, right, I've got to get ready for a competition, I would be taking things to the max. I would be like trying to lift heavier. I would be deadlifting. I'd be squatting with a great load of weight on my back. That's nervous system shocking. And at my age, it's not doable. Not for me, it isn't. For Vince, he could do it. He wouldn't have a problem. I could say, right, we're deadlifting and squatting today. He would have no problem with it. He'd be back doing CrossFit tomorrow. He would be no problem with it. For me, I can't cope with it. So, my body won't tolerate it. So this type of thing has been working well for me. So Serge Newbury used to do 6 days a week, sometimes 7 days a week. And his split would be chest and back, it would be shoulders and arms, and it would be legs. So what I've done is I've taken the 6 days a week, made it 3 days a week because I'm staying in my lane. I know that I cannot get away with any more than 9-10 sets per body part. So that's all I try and do. And Serge Newbury used to do the very basics. So it'd be standing press behind neck for shoulders, for instance, and he would do like a lying lateral raise. That would be it. He might do 10 to 15 sets of each of those movements, but that would be it. So if you take that concept of just a couple of movements and working them hard and fast, that's what I've taken from Serge Newbury. That's the workouts I'm enjoying. And for all intents and purposes, you pretend you're them, like I used to do when I was a kid. And it sounds silly, but you do, you pretend. And then it'll go to Danny Padilla program. So I start that this weekend. Now, his program was very similar as far as the split goes. It'd be chest and back, and it was shoulders and arms, and it was legs. But Danny Padilla did a lot more variety of movements. So for his chest, it would be benching, incline bench, cable flies, and it might be dips. And he might do 4 or 5 sets of each of those, like the Arnold type thing. So what happens if I just do 3, 3, 2, and 2? I'm still getting those movements. I'm still enjoying doing those movements. I'm still excited by seeing the pictures of Danny Padilla in the old magazines I have doing those things. And that's what I do. The leg workout might be back squats, but I won't go heavy. I'll do back squats, hack squats. And I think he did like a leg press. You might have done lunge as well, or a leg extension. But he might have done 5 sets of each of those, but I'll use that and do it. Then the next program will be Chris Dickerson.
Obviously, it's taking you out of your routine, which oftentimes you can get so comfortable doing the thing that just comes naturally to you.
Yep.
And sometimes finding a way to get out of that can help you find something that you didn't think you would actually enjoy, right? Like you didn't think, yeah, or that as well, right? So how's it been? Like, have you found that one routine specifically has been like, wow, I didn't think this would be something I would really enjoy, but it's actually something that's not only enjoy, but is working really well for me as well from a...
He's working really well. I'm impressed with how it's working. Now, let me say this though, if I was deciding I was getting ready for a competition, if I was advising somebody, I wouldn't advise them to do this. This is for somebody who is like myself, a little bit older, and probably just wanting to keep in shape. Look, I'm not going to get any bigger, but I can get more quality. I can have a good look to my physique, and I can get a hard workout and get cardiovascular health and everything that goes with it without joint problems. I would say doing the old stuff I used to do, because that was successful, and it was successful with a lot of clients, like either the all body routine or the basic split, where it was strive to get stronger, the power at work, the high intensity work. That is the things I have seen the most results with anybody, and myself included. But I also, if we go all the way back to when I was a kid, before I started any of that, realizing what I needed to do to be competitive, I had a period of time where I made really good gains and had a really good little ripped physique. And that's what I'm trying to do. I had a really good little physique when I was a kid. And, I used to be able to run miles on end. I had really good abs. I had striations everywhere. I used to do a lot of upright upright rows and all those exercises, bull work and stuff. So I've like gone full circle. I'm thinking to myself, right, before I even knew there was anything as competition, I used to love looking this way. I wanted to look like Conan, put it that way, and then the bodybuilders on the wall. You know, I was like, oh, I want to look like that, but I had no idea that you could compete. You know that they're winning universe and stuff, but you don't know that there's local competitions you can do.
Right.
So that's been my goal, is to go back to when I was a kid and enjoy my training and develop the physique I had when I was younger. And it's working. What it is this the program I've been doing now. I've only been doing the new Brit one. This is the 5th week of this. And like for legs, for instance, it's been like a French squat, which is a really short movement at the bottom, which is a freehand movement. But that after leg extensions has been incredible. And honestly, you would think that like I would shrink away to nothing. No. Absolutely, I'll look better. I think it's because the body's getting flushed. The body is getting a different stimulus on different muscle fibers I've not touched for years, because I've been so gung-ho of trying to push myself. I need to be lifting this. I need to be doing power rack squats. I need to be doing deadlifting. And it's just breaking my system down, which does not allow your body to show the muscle you're actually trying to work. Whereas now, chest has seemed to have sprouted up, more striations in my chest. I've been doing, one thing this program has had a lot in it is a hell of a lot of abs, which is what Newbert did. He did them 6 days a week. So we've been doing them to start like a full block of like 100 twists and crunches and hanging leg raises for high reps, circuit after circuit of those. I've normally done like heavy ab work, like hanging leg raises with weight or crunches with a big dumbbell on my chest and things. So doing the high rep rate, you can't spot reduce, but what it's done is it's allowed muscles to be triggered a little bit more and brought out a little bit more. So my abdominals have stood out really well. If you was a runner, for instance, say you're a hill runner, you can't spot reduce, but your legs will develop and look like hill runners. So you see what I'm coming from with that. You develop to what you're giving it.
It's interesting to me because do you think that there's going to be things that you take away from this experiment or experience where you will completely revamp maybe a routine that's designed like where you're not following someone else's, where you kind of put together your own custom routine based on everything you've gone through this last couple months?
I follow a chap on Instagram. He's called John. I can't pronounce his second name for the life of me. I'm sorry. He does workouts, and I've mentioned this in a few articles and then also in my book as well. He does articles from the old Muscle and Fitness magazines. So he'll get each day he trains 6 days a week. He's sort of my age. But again, he can recover from that. There's a lot of cycling as well. He's got a really good physique and it's completely natural. Now, what he does is he'll dig a magazine out and it might have Franco Columbu's chest routine or back routine, and he'll do that day. I've gone the other way and done like a program for 5 weeks. He changes his every time he trains.
Oh, wow.
Follows somebody every time. So he's getting a huge variety of work, and he's never competed, this chap, but he does have a really good physique. And I thought, what a great idea. It was that what made me think of doing this. And then I started to think about, what about that book I wrote called Full Circle, where I was training like I was when I was a kid. I need to go back to doing that because I'm not happy. My training's not where I'm happy at it,
Like a lot of these guys never trained to failure, really, right? Like Danny Padilla,
Okay.
Serge Nubret, right? Like it was mainly in that era, at least from what I've read, right? Like what they've said, right? Or maybe Danny Padilla is not a good example. I really don't know how he trained or how he said he trained. Maybe he's more accurate.
Right.
Serge Nubret, that was a thing he mentioned. I wonder if could it have just been also just if you're abusing that, redlining it every time. Do you think that maybe had an effect on maybe some overtraining symptoms a little bit as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Then again, I think the more years you've trained, I think things need to be a little bit different because your body is, you're doing this again. You're doing that again. It's clued up on what you're doing. The more years you've trained, the more you've got to change things. It's in my experience. But again, as you're older, your tissues don't seem to look the same. You tend to get where you don't have that roundness you had when you was a kid, when you was like competing, when you was at your prime. So you don't have that fullness to the muscle. And I don't know whether that's because the pump's maybe not the same. You don't get that feeling of like, well, you can hardly walk because your legs are that pumped. Well, this type of training has been doing that for me, where it feels like I was like those days. And that's probably why areas on my body have sort of started to jump up a little bit. I remember I've got a good friend of mine, Brooks Cubic. He writes for Substack as well. He also runs a magazine called Dinosaur Training. And he's been like a mentor for years when I was doing all the really heavy work. And his stuff really works fantastic for me. But he wrote an article and it's called something like Reduce Your Age by 20 years in 3 weeks or something like that. And it was about an experiment which was done in the 70s where they took maybe 10 or so men in the late 60s, early 70s. And what they did was they took them away in like sort of an institute somewhere and made everything like it was when there was maybe 40 or 50. So they had newspapers from that day. They had things on the TV, which was from that day. They had to wear clothes, which they wore them days. As if you've taken back and gone back in time, like Back to the Future type movie, you know, you've gone back. Now, also, before they put them in this place, they tested the blood pressure, they tested their eyesight and all sorts of other things. How mobile are they? You know, how flexible are they? So they tested all them. When they'd been in there 3 weeks and brought them out again, they tested them again and their things were off the charts. Much improved. Like they'd gone back 20 years. Unbelievable. So it shows the state of the mind. And that made me think as well. And in the article, Brooks was saying, if you wanted to recreate that, if you started like training in the things you wore when you was a kid or when you was in your prime, you know, playing the music you did when it was that time, which is no problem for me. I'm still playing 90s stuff. Still love the music I love from way back. But if you did that, how does it make you feel? So I do. I wear like vests from the type of vest I wore when I was a kid. I'll wear the same sort of pumps and things like I did. And if I see a vest, which is like the type of thing I bought, you know, from these old little thrift shops or something like that, and if I see something which is from that day and age when I was a kid, I'll buy it and wear it because it makes you feel like you've gone back in time. I know this sounds really silly.
No, it
But
doesn't.
Kenny, as you get older, you'll realize you've got to do what you can do to make your mind feel right, to
Right.
enjoy what you're doing, you know?
It really is about that because before I train, so a big one is
Absolutely.
like a lot of the Arthur Jones, the Nautilus stuff. It just psychs me up to go in and push myself the way
It
I
does
know,
me. Absolutely. I love Arthur
right?
Jones. You know, like I was saying earlier, if that's the thing, and if you enjoy training that way, and I always did, and I felt I got the best gains out of that, and for clients as well, ignore what I'm saying as far as this training goes, but remember it or write it down somewhere to remember in years to come. When you're still in your prime, Kenny, you need to be training like that. You need to be enjoying this. So when you
Mm.
get older, you look back and you look back through your diaries and your logbooks and you think, God, there were such good days when I was training with so and so, when I was doing that, when oh my, I can't believe I lifted that much weight. So when you look back in your logbooks, you're proud. So, you know, you think if you're training really hard now, think, I want to be proud of this workout 10 years from now. I've got logbooks since I was 17. I've got them all. I can look back to see what I was doing when I was 18, 19, 20, what workouts I was doing, how I was doing and what I was eating, so on and so on. I keep, you know, detailed notes. And
Yeah.
it's been one of the best things I've ever done.
You know, based on what you've done in the past, what's most productive from a
Yeah.
building muscle standpoint. So, what's interesting to me is that you're putting that aside to not only experiment, but also to cater to your psychology
Yeah.
so that you can feel good and feel excited and motivated to
Yeah.
train.
The most productive way to train will be doing the HIIT type thing, the abbreviated training way. But as you get older, when the weights are starting to go up, which is all you've got really is to try and increase your strength and the intensity. As they start getting up there, it's a danger waiting to happen. So at my age, it's not productive for me.
Mm.
Plus, I'm not getting ready for anything. I needed to switch that off. I was like, oh, do I compete? Oh, shall I go for a powerlifting meet? I needed to be doing something. And to switch that off was really hard. And then all of a sudden, I've done this and it's all gone. All that's gone. It's
Wow. So
like
the
I'm
stress, the
enjoying
pressure, the
the
pressure's gone.
pressure because I
Yeah.
pressured myself every year. And at this time of year, it was like, right, I was getting ready for a qualifier or I was getting ready for the Worlds. And it was like, right, switch on. It was like every year I said to myself, I wrote in my diary, train harder than ever, improve more than ever. And that was always in my mind was to be better, better, and better. And then when it comes to when you're getting older, you think, look, I can't keep doing this. It's a detriment. There's other things in life. I want a lot of holidays and things, you know, I want to spend more time with Joanne and my kids now, my grandson and stuff. So, you know, it's got to be where it fits my mindset. And I think I've got it now. Yeah, I'm happy.
That's the key, and that's great to hear. Do you think you'll ever go back to it though, like the abbreviated stuff, because you enjoy it simply out of enjoyment, or do you think that right now you're not even sure?
Do you know what? I've gone back to it so many times. I think I've had my fill of it. And then I burn out and I try and come back. I'll go in again now, but I'll take my time. And again, it still burns me out. And I only get
Hmm.
to so far as what I could do. Look, some
What
people can still do it. Some people
what
can. John Hart's still doing it and absolutely no
Yeah.
problem with it.
What do you think it is that burns you out? Is it the, okay, here's the thing. Is it the failure thing? Is it the beating the logbook thing? Like
I
knowing you have to beat this number kind of thing.
Yeah, and that's part of it. Yeah, obviously it's the getting stronger thing. I'm still strong in the back and that, but if I had to like keep striving every week to get stronger in bench press and any sort of pressing movement, yeah, I could use more machines and stuff, but it's not me. I like the Nautilus stuff, but there isn't a great deal around where we are. There's bits of it, but not much. I'd have to travel far to use it. Again, it's striving for something. It's like, look, if I was striving for something, I would do it. But going back to as I was a kid, I'm not striving for anything. I'm striving for just looking good and feeling good. So when I like go on holiday or whatever I am and I've got a vest on and shorts on, people go, wow, that guy's in good shape for his age, you know, and I feel proud or, you know, good to be in a vest, you know, because nobody ever sees me, you know, other than post for Instagram or something, ever sees me with a top off at all. You know, I train clients like this all wrapped up all the time. It's nice to know it's under there and I've worked hard for it, if you know what I mean. Here's the point. When you're competing, you want to be as big and as lean as possible. So you're trying to get bigger and trying to get leaner. Now, when I was a kid, it wasn't about size. Yeah, I looked at the pictures, but I was looking at all the bodybuilders who had really good shape. You know, like Sergio Bray was ripped and everybody was, yeah, he did look big, but, you know, you looked at the striations in his shoulders and his chest. And when I was a kid, looked like that. Mini version, but that's look like. So the training I'm doing now, at the age I am now, let's just say it's not to gain size, it's to add quality to my body, the size I already have. It's keeping the muscle, what was built by the hard, heavy work. You know, I'm not as big as I was, you know, maybe, I don't know, 7 to 10 pound lighter muscle-wise than I was. It just happens. As you're getting a little bit weaker, as you're getting older, you start to lose that size. If you're natural, that is, you're completely natural. You're never going to stay like you were in your prime. But yeah, I still have a good-looking physique at the age I am.
Is it the first time you're doing this experiment?
I think it was the year before last. I did it, and I wrote a book about it. And then I got in my mind that I listened to some of your podcasts. Your fault. Listen to some of your podcasts. And right, I'm going to compete. And then I blew it out of the water. And then it was like, no, look, you need to calm down. You need to enjoy life, but enjoy your training. So then on the long walks in the morning, I started to think about this. Then it was obviously Brooks Kubik's article made me think. And then it was watching John's Instagram and thinking, yeah, God, he's so chilled with his training. Why aren't I like that? Why can't I be like that? And then, so I've made myself like that. Made myself so I can just enjoy it. I might get up at like 10 to 4 or something like that now. I'll have a shave, a bath. I'll have a little bit of breakfast. I might have something like some fruit or something like that. And I'll get out for a walk. Now, I'll either do it with a backpack on or do like a power walk with ankle weights or things like that. And I might go out for like 35, 40 minutes. I come back and I do